So it's 7 o'clock and it's Thursday evening. So welcome to everybody for this evening's webinar on holidays and days out. My name's Anna Hall and I'm Director of Operations at RDA. I'm really excited this evening because we've got a fantastic speaker for you this evening. We've got Judy Olby, who's our national lead for holidays, and I'm sure many of you know Judy well, and I'm sure she'll speak brilliantly about her experiences of days out. We've also got Marissa Brotherton-Mackay, who again I'm sure many of you know really well, our Group Support and Business Operations Manager, and certainly if you've got started recently, I'm sure you'll have spoken to Marissa, sending all your forms in and everything. So yeah, we've got both of them this evening. So before I kick off, I want to say that even though we're not running national holidays, or we didn't run them last year in 2020, and we are not running them this year in 2021 because of COVID, we realise how important holidays and days out are to our participants and to our volunteers. At this point, therefore, we'd like to point out that even though we're not doing national holidays, it doesn't stop you as a group doing a holiday or a day out with your group. And I had a really good conversation with Clwyd Special Riding Centre, and they are planning to open in early July. And so if you want to organise a holiday directly with them, they would be happy for you to do that. And so please get in touch with them. I'm sure there are other places as well, but we've also had some great conversations with an accessibility mark centre on the Isle of Wight called Island Riding that has on-site accessible accommodation. And again, they would be really pleased to welcome any groups or any parties from RDA for holidays. So even though we're not running national holidays, there may be ways that you can get out and about this year. We know it's been a tricky year and we all want something to look forward to. We know the weather's got a little bit better and we're all a little bit more hopeful with the summer here and restrictions starting to lift. And so I'm absolutely delighted to announce about our Grand Day Out initiative. And this is the brainchild of Judy, and I'll ask her in a bit about where this idea came from and a bit more detail about it. This plans to support about 50 groups with a contribution of £100 to take participants and volunteers on a day out. We want people to do something a little bit different this summer, even if they can't get back to full sessions. And we will be, if we have more applications than we have funding available, we will be prioritising those groups where it's likely to have the biggest impact on the group. So the greater proportion of participants the group has that can go on the day out will be prioritised. We'll also be prioritising groups that either haven't got started yet or have only partially got started, because we know that those groups are struggling sometimes to engage with their participants, and this may be a fantastic way in which you can work with your participants and volunteers. And this is all thanks to support from the players of People's Postcode Lottery. So without any further ado, I'd like to kick off with a few questions for Judy about her and this initiative. So Judy, firstly, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your involvement with RDA?
Well, I think in a way it started with my grandmother when I was 2. She put me on a horse and that gave me the horse infection then. And ever since then, I've been looking for horses wherever I went. With RDA itself, I taught deaf-blind children, multiply handicapped children in Bradford, and our physio opened an RDA group. And so this was my first taste of RDA and I was absolutely thrilled by it. Then sadly, my youngest son, who was a rider, and several of you do know him, is Peter, he had a very serious brain hemorrhage when he was 13 and he was in hospital 15 months. And his first words were, "Get me up off my backside." Because by then he was a 14-year-old who was the sort of person who was doing break dancing, BMX, bike tricks, riding his pony, just active all the time. And so one of my school colleagues had a very quiet pony and we took him in his wheelchair into the stable and the only thing he could move was his right hand. And he groomed this pony. We went every day. The farmer where this pony was stabled was a big burly man and he said, "I'll pick him up and sit him on the pony." So he did. And we went every day for 6 weeks. At the end of 6 weeks, he could sit up on the pony and ride for about 10 minutes, quarter of an hour. So, I mean, this, after all the doom and gloom in the hospital, was so uplifting and fantastic. Simultaneously, Anne Everall at Acrecliff Equestrian Centre in Otley, she started the Otley and Dales Riding for Disabled group. And so we already knew Anne, so we went there. And she said to Peter, she said to me, because he didn't say very much in those days, it's changed now. She said to me, what did he like doing? And I said, he loved to earn money because he always wanted to spend it. And so she put 2p pieces on the top of the posts. And she said, stay sitting up on the pony till you get to the post and you can have the 2p. So we started off like that. And I could see RDA was very creative and individual and imaginative, gave so much fun and satisfaction, and my goodness, the therapy for my son Peter. So a lot of what I do is to say thank you for what it's done for Peter. The other thing it did for Peter, because he's the youngest of 5 children and they all did their Duke of Edinburgh's award, he was determined to do his, and expeditions were quite a questionable thing for him to do. Because he was barely walking at this time. But through Lady Mary Townley, who invented the Townley Loop, which is a wonderful loop ride with places to stay with your horse up here on the Lancashire-Yorkshire borders, Mary Townley lent him always a lovely quiet pony, and someone else, Horsey, was doing her Duke of Edinburgh's award. She led Peter, and he had to do had to tell her all the stable management. It had to be done before and after the day. He had to do so much, it was incredible. And he'd already done his bronze at this stage in another way. Then he did it for silver and gold. And I mean, it was really like doing A level or a degree for somebody in his condition. And it just gave him so much fun. He had to do trial expeditions and camps. And I have a wonderful photo of him fallen down a ditch where the other people were sure he must get down in the bottom of this ditch. And he's down there and he's waving and grinning, and they all pulled him up again. And I thought, oh, thank goodness, having ponies has enabled him to have real living again. So I've wanted always to say thank you for this and open up this possibility for more people. With holidays, I have always wanted to create a holiday where you could ride on from one place to another. And we had it all organised for that summer when we had shut lockdown. So it hasn't happened yet. But I mean, the drawback was it was dreadfully expensive. But it's an ambition. And I just think if there's a group who's interested to do it, well, we must get together sometime when we've got rid of COVID. Just very exciting things that really have happened. And then ever since, how I got my ideas for doing this grand day out. I was regional chairman for Yorkshire and Cleveland at one time, and I felt so privileged visiting all the groups, and every group gave me an idea, 1, 2 or 3 ideas, and I'd take them away and pass them on and use them. And we had a fantastic group right down to the southern end of our region, the Snydale group. I don't know how they raised the money, but they hired a coach, and they've done this more than once, I know. They hired a coach, they had an immense horse lorry, they loaded everybody up, all their horses, all their riders, all their volunteers, all the families, and they went to the beach for the day. And the photos I have, it never looks like good weather, but the smiles are huge, and they were just having the most fantastic time. So I thought, that's what we all need. Everyone's holidays are being cancelled. We need to do something different that's really going to give us something to go home and talk about and natter about with our group and cement us as a group and let everyone help everybody. So that's really how that idea came. And then lots of my other ideas come from other groups. So you'll probably recognize them.
So have you got any ideas for people that were thinking about having, because you've got loads of experience of holidays and days out, so what kind of highlights, if people are thinking about having a grand day out this summer, what ideas would you give them? You've given us the beach one, I like that, but have you got anything else? Then
where we live, further up our dale, there is the most amazing trekking centre with wonderful treks, hilly treks, valley treks, treks by the river. and it's a riding school too. They've got all the hunt horses there. So when you walk around the yard, you can see these magnificent horses. They've got a barn with one side open. And if you go up there and you want to have a picnic, you just say before, can we have the barn, please? And they'll put a table and a tablecloth and chairs all ready for you. And you can picnic there out of the rain and see all these horses coming and going. So this, to me, that's the number one thing, because I want to get maximum dose of horse.
But it doesn't, I suppose days out don't have to always involve horses, do they? I mean, people can have a wonderful time without horses as well. I know they have wonderful times with them, but
yeah. Well, then one of our groups, they every year where they rode was in someone's private estate, and the estate reached as far as where there was a village hall. So they used to ride with half the children riding their ponies out to the village hall. They'd set up all the tables and they'd put up the gazebos for a rainy day, and everyone brought a picnic, or else they had a barbecue if it was that sort of weather. And they played games, they did quizzes, they did stick the donkey's tail on, and all those sort of lovely fun things you can do. And then they switched over and the other half rode the ponies back to the stables. Now that was really lovely, and because they did it every year, they'd got it set up and organised, and so it was not a huge trial and tribulation for organising. And they had fantastic volunteers who walked with the ponies. I've been to that picnic several times, always lovely. And near us, we've also got a donkey sanctuary, and I think there are quite a lot of donkey rescue places. And when I've taken adult riders there by choice on a holiday, because there's gooey about the donkeys, and you can book there and go and groom them. Somewhere we went, they would turn the donkeys out and they put up little jumps, and they did a wonderful point-to-point race around. We had huge fun with that. So, of course, I'm using animals again. Peter,
there seems to be a common theme there, Judy.
Yes, carriage driving, a carriage drive picnic. If you had a carriage driving group who love you and give you rides, that would be wonderful. But ideas I had without having necessarily to go out, because I know some groups that would not be possible. So I'm sorry, it involves ponies again, but something we've done, which is huge fun, is painting the ponies. Beware, we did it with poster paint. Yellow poster paint slides off black ponies. There's a lot of physics involved with this. Red poster paint cannot be washed off grey ponies. They stay pink for quite a long time. But what we did, we painted them all up, and we first of all, we said, let's look at the bits of our body that's the same as the ponies. And so we'd say, oh, we've got necks. Well, go and find your pony's necks and paint a nice pattern on the neck. We've got knees. Oh, go and paint the knees. And they did it in little twosomes and threesomes. It was just huge fun. Then we paraded them around, and we've only got 4 ponies, and we admired them all, had our picnics. Then we washed the ponies. And this is the most fun, because you have all these coloured bubbles streaming down and blocking up the drains and scrubbing away at the grey ponies, trying to get them grey again. After which we plaited them up, and meanwhile, the helpers, we'd made a maze with poles. And so we led them round the maze, and they all got a rosette. That was great, great fun. I'm sorry, I've got everything's to do with ponies, isn't it?
All right, just on that one, I'm presuming that we would probably need to, just thinking of Emma Bayliss and Doug Smith, we'd need to make sure the paint was equine friendly. And I must say that there's some wonderful things you can get now. There's a sparkly paint that people paint on horses' quarters and things like that. So there's probably some lovely things that you can get that are very equine friendly, and making sure that you're not causing any irritation to their skin or anything like that.
That's a brilliant idea. Yes, thank you. We did have some little tryouts before, and we got some poster paint that was especially for children with sensitive skin. It was fine, but the people with the black ponies desperately wanted to get yellow on them. They got stuck there. Something we did with parents, we had a triathlon day. And from the children's point of view, they rode a course round where we are. We've got an indoor school we can use, an outdoor school. They're both small. We've got a drive. We've got a little woodland walk behind. So children could do the pony ride. The mothers did a 3-legged race up the drive and nearly died laughing. And the dads did welly boot throwing. Now, this was great fun. And actually, it was a rainy day and there was an immense puddle. One of the dads, whenever he tried to throw, the boot went out backwards. So in the end, all the other dads got together and they said, come on, you're going to do it this time. We're all going to count 1, 2, 3. And he made this huge effort and fell over backwards in an immense puddle. I mean, that was the best bit of the day because everyone was just laughing their socks off. And they keep saying, when can we do that again? So that was a great success. Amen. The other thing we've done is dressing up. And I have to tell you, this was really because at Halloween, we always do a Halloween party with dressing up. And we had the sweetest little fair-haired 3-year-old little girl who rode a teeny Shetland called Lennon. And she had autism. She never spoke. And when it was the party day, her mum had bought her a purple witch's costume. And she put it on her and she looked at herself in the mirror and she said, walk on, Lennon. And she just started talking from then onwards. So I said to her mum, just put the purple clothes on every day. Anyway, the mum was a rider. She was so impressed about this. They bought her a pony and they moved a little way away. And so we lost contact with them. And then when we started up our Thursday morning school group, who should appear? 9-year-old, talking brilliantly, this purple witch. It was just so special. Lovely rider, beautiful language and speech. I thought, that was all that purple witch started that off. It's wonderful. But we have also, we have a very friendly little village local show that has very beginner equestrian classes. And we managed to get insurance to go and do this. So one year we went as cowboys, one year we went as Indians, and one year we went as knights in armor. And what they allowed us to do, we'd line up our knights where there was a mounting block. And then when they were doing a little show round, they could all take a turn to do it. And everyone clapped. And their parents nearly died of joy. And I must tell you that for knights in armor, we made armor for the pony. And we found some imitation leather plastic that was silver. And you could draw on with black felt pens. You could draw the nuts and bolts and everything. Oh, pony looked marvelous. So that was great fun. And we had a mum who came with a trailer and insured us to take the pony, and we had so many parents involved. It was a real community effort. That was great. Now I'm trying to see you could go and visit a mechanical horse if you're near one, and you might do your first canter. That would be fantastic. And where we go, when we've done this with holiday people, the mechanical horse people, they put on all sorts of quizzes and colouring in pictures and donkey's tail games, all these sort of things to go on as well. That makes a really lovely day out.
And I guess one of the visits then can be to an alternative group. So if your group is not signed off to ready to get started, you may be able to go to a nearby group, particularly if they've got a mechanical horse, but you might just want to go there and get to meet new ponies or something. Exactly. So some of these ideas you've come up with might be about groups kind of collaborating within a region to do something a little bit different.
And I think one way we could do that where we are is doing an endurance ride with another group, and getting together over that, because they've got more ponies than us and they've got a marvelous wood to ride in. I know groups might be all adults, they might be only school children, they might be only tiny children, they might be only dressage riders. I mean, there's so many different groups. I think that's really exciting, but I'm just casting out a few ideas. I'm sure everyone will have much more brilliant ideas and have such fun with them. And I think something I've really learned from COVID is when we've trained up our parents to do the mounting and the side walking, well, the parents are so enthusiastic now. They're there. They're much more part of the group. They're not just in a little corner nattering. And to me, that is really lovely. It makes a much stronger group. And I'm hoping they're going to be very, very good at fundraising, because we've sadly spent all our money we were saving up for a pony just on our liveries. But, you have to jump in and get there.
Yeah, and some of the ideas, it sounds like the experiences that you've had, that the days out have given a huge impact not just on the participants, but also the volunteers. And it
Volunteer.
sounds like the parents have got quite involved this time around, so that could be really helpful too.
Yes, because you always need them for transport when you're stuck, and because we've got a lot of spacious country around here, it's just wonderful having the parents involved in this way. It's really, really special for us.
Thank you so much, Judy. That's
You're
just
welcome.
fantastic. You've given us all a wealth of ideas, and I know you've talked a lot about equine and donkeys and all sorts of things,
Yeah.
but there is no need to include equestrian activities in this. If you want to have a picnic or a day out and do something a little bit different, go and visit a place. You talked about the beach, or you talked about the woodland. Actually, you can do all of these things without horses if that's something that you want to do. So there's no sort of limit on what you can do. And so, sorry, Judy, go on.
You could do a hobby horse race in the woods with little children, because I know I've got quite a lot of little children, and I'm thinking, now where are they going to fit in?
I love that. I love hobby horse riding. And also the other thing that I've heard about is space hopper dressage. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh, that would be brilliant. How lovely.
So get a whole load of space hoppers and bounce around a field when the weather is good. I think that sounds like a good fun thing to do.
It really does. Yes, that's wonderful.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So I'm just aware of time, and so there's a few bits and pieces that we want to pick up. And I'm aware there are a couple of questions. If anybody wants to ask any questions, just pop them in the Q&A little box at the bottom, and then we'll come to them at the end. So for people listening who wish to apply for a Grand Day Out, we just need to know a little bit about what you're planning to do. And there are some really simple questions using a SurveyMonkey link. And that can all be found on the Holidays and Day Out page on the MyRDA website. If you go to the MyRDA website, on the left-hand side, there's that big green block, and it's the one that says Holidays and Days Out. If you can't do a SurveyMonkey, then there is also a downloadable Word form which you can complete and email back to us. Applications close on the 12th of July, so you've got a little bit of time to think about what you want to do and to maybe buy your space hoppers or hobby horses or whatever it is you plan to do, and you'll be notified just a week later whether you've been successful or not. If obviously we only have 50 applicants, then I'd like to say that everybody will be successful in their application. We're obviously having to report to funders, so all Grand Days Out, we're saying, can be completed by the 26th of September. So that gives you most of the summer to get going on this. And we're also asking for information from you. So how many volunteers and participants you had on your day out, photographs, and also some stories as well, because as Judy's explained, there are some wonderful and gorgeous stories that are just heartwarming coming from these kind of types of things. But Days Out are about having fun. We know that, and Judy's really expressed that brilliantly. But we need to make sure we ensure they're safe. So can I pass over to Marissa now to see if there's anything that people need to do? And we have actually been asked a question about insurance. So can you pick that up, please, Marissa?
Yeah, of course, I can't see it at the moment. So shall I just quickly cover what you need to do? I've broken it down into sort of 3 rough process steps that you'll need to follow. And obviously I'll pick it up in a minute because I'm just doing this on a phone at the moment. So essentially, if a group hasn't yet been started, so if you've been inactive since last spring, you'll need to follow the Road to Restart process, which is what we've been busy doing in the group. We've got a dedicated team, the group support team at National Office, working tirelessly on this at the moment to help groups get back into action. Now, that may be in some small capacity, so it could be training equines and volunteers. Some have been signed off to work with participants again, but in any case, if you've partially opened or you haven't yet opened, get in touch with the group support team and we'll talk you through the step-by-step process to get back. So you'll need those COVID risk assessments and those COVID steps in place, just a bit of guidance really about things you need to have to keep people safe before you start thinking about getting your people back together again. So once you've hopefully got that under your belt, the next step would be, hopefully you'll be successful in applying for one of these bursary, these funding places for the Grand Day Out. You'd need to do a risk assessment. Now, this would be based on your traditional session risk assessment, but factored more around the activities that you plan to do on your day out as well. So things to think about really would be checking the venue. So it might be feasible, perhaps as Anna's already said, if you're planning a trip to the beach or to the park for a picnic, it would be wise to do a sweep of the site, checking for hazards as well. All of the usual health and safety things, but whilst we're still in the midst of COVID, it would be wise to include some steps where appropriate as well for COVID protocols. So If you're in a field, clearly surfaces aren't such an issue, but you might think about your social distancing requirements in your area, whether your team need to wear face coverings, whether you've got additional people at risk as well. But as I said, we're happy to talk you through those things carefully to make custom plans for you. The other two things, don't forget as well, they will be in your risk assessment, but don't forget to include your safeguarding and your first aid provision as well. That's really important. It's quite easy when we're not doing traditional sessions at the moment to perhaps not think about including those as well, because the experience is so different. But again, my team deal with both of those. So if you need any specific advice about the numbers of people involved or the particular type of people involved, we can talk you through that. And the third stage really is, once you've got all that under your belt, you just need to complete an insurance form. It's the I word. Those of you perhaps who've already applied for a day out or, under the RDA Holidays scheme in previous years, the form that we've put together is not dissimilar to the one that you've used before. So essentially, you're talking about the venue, you're talking about who's involved, where you're going and what you're going to be doing. So that form will be available to anyone who wants to apply for these grants as well. And I think the most important thing is every situation will be different. Everybody's plans will be different as well. So if you're stuck and you need help, talk us through and we will send you the specific forms that you need for the activity, because it's worth bearing in mind. I mean, it's relatively straightforward if you're not doing equestrian activities. If you're going to start involving riding or anything with equines, there's just a couple of more steps that you'd need to include, but we can send you the forms that you'll need to do that.
Brilliant, thanks, Marissa. I'm just going to pick up one question now because
sorry, I can't see it on my screen. Yeah, sorry.
So Judy talked about doing this wonderful thing at a trekking centre. So what about insurance if we go to a trekking centre that isn't RDA?
Okay, so essentially you'd need to make sure that you'd seen their venue risk assessment, and there'll be an RDA insurance requirement would be that in that such a situation you'd need to check their public liability as well. So you'd need to check that they're equipped and legally able to offer those sort of services. You'd need to see their venue risk assessment and their public liability. Again, I can cover this more in detail if this is something that you want to apply for as well, but then you'd factor all your plans in involving that as well. But if you do want to do that, get in touch with us because we can talk you through whether the venue is appropriate.
And also in that situation, obviously your coach would be there as well, who would know the participants, know their level of ability, and would make sure that the equines were suitable for them as well. So you need to have that kind of check by having that coach there as well.
Yeah, just on that note, Anna, as well, while you've mentioned that as well, it's worth thinking about that if your group coach doesn't have a coach that's able to coach outside their home venue, there is a specific form that you can apply through your region as well to allow that coach to work with a group in equestrian activities outside their traditional home venue as well. So if you do want to do something like that and you've only got a pink coach at your home venue, get in touch with us and we can talk you through how you can get past for that.
Fantastic, thank you. I've got one other question, which is around the kind of geographical spread of this. So we are supported by the Players of People's Coast Postcode Lottery here, very gratefully at National Office, and that covers all of our groups, all RDA groups. So if you want to apply for that, there is no exclusions to groups that can apply. So just really to clarify that. I haven't got any more questions coming through, but we've got about a minute. So I want to have the final word from Judy, just to kind of say something about the impact of days out and holidays on people. So can I pass back over to you, Judy, and just kind of sum it up a little bit, if that's all right?
Thank you. It's lovely talking to all of you. I have really enjoyed it. I think the holidays impact has absolutely amazed me. I found that recently, I've done it for years, but people have made friendships, which with email, they've made friends from the South Coast up to Aberdeen. They've made friends, Ireland, all over the place. And they will send me messages saying, are you doing this holiday? Because so-and-so and so-and-so that I met last year, they want to come. Can we come again? And can we share a room? And to all these friendships, which are actually quite difficult for a lot of people with disabilities to make, but it's because they've got this common interest of horses. They've had enormous amounts of fun because we've done all sorts of crazy things in the evenings, like making newspaper habits to wear and singing crazy songs and doing the cha-cha-cha all over the place. We've just done lots of crazy things. And they've just been so happy and laughed and laughed and laughed. And they want to go on with it. And I think that is wonderful. So I've had a blind young lady, a teenager, who said, because I always say, look, this is a DIY holiday. We've all got to help each other. And she said, well, I'll lay the tables for you. And she did. And she's done it 2 or 3 years running. And I've heard someone say to her, oh, come on, let's go and do so and so. No, I've got to have the breakfast set up ready. And I think, wow, what responsibility she's taken on. And I also had another, it's table laying is obviously a good thing. I had a little girl came with this note saying, remember, she's very, very, very slow doing everything. And again, she must have been about 10. She offered to do the tables. Well, she did them like the quickest wizard out. So I thought, well, we've discovered she's going to have a future as a waitress, isn't she? This is wonderful. It's just so fascinating to see different aspects of people that develop. And we've done, because we've got a most marvelous local ballet teacher, and she brings her ballet bars, and we do ballet exercises to all her lovely little musics after breakfast, because she studied what will help them with their riding, use of their hands, their posture. And we've seen some people don't know their left foot from their right. And we've seen those same people coming year after year, the improvement. And even the men say, oh, yes, it's ballet starting. Yes, we just get up there in time. And it just amazes me. It's like they've shrugged off their habit selves and taken on a holiday mode and been very happy with it.
I love that a holiday or even maybe a day out could involve some ballet. Who knows? Who knows what it could entail? So I just really want to encourage everybody who's listening and all groups to apply for this and hopefully plan their grand day out. And I'd really like to thank Judy for this absolutely fantastic idea and this inspirational webinar. It's been absolutely fantastic speaking to you. So please go onto the My RDA site, onto holidays and day out. And if you've got any questions about the nuts and bolts of it, Marissa and her fantastic group support team will be able to support you. So thank you all so much for your time, and hopefully catch up with you soon. I'm really looking forward to hearing some of your plans about your grand day out. Thanks very much, everybody, and good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.